Yes, record.
Recording.
Yeah.
Started. And then we will start the webinar and smiles. All right. Looks like we've got some people coming on. We will give everybody just a second to get clicked in. I appreciate everybody logging on. We're giving everybody just a minute to get all logged on and be able to see the screens. And give it just a minute more. It looks like we've got some more people joining us. So just hold tight for just a second and we will get started in momentarily. All right. I'm going to go ahead and start. We'll have a few minutes of some introductions here so everybody can kind of get started or whatever, but I want to welcome everyone to the latest edition of the Future Surveyor Foundation. We have this diversity panel that we're talking to today, and we've titled this Growing Minorities in Surveying. Just to talk a second, just to kind of let you guys know who we are and what we do. We are the Future Surveyor Foundation. We're a nonprofit organization, and our hope is to create opportunity, inspiration, and support to develop a skilled and inclusive workforce in surveying and geospatial engineering. It's a group that we're doing quite a few little panel discussions and some different events and things like that, but we're really hoping to broaden this out a little bit. There's been several of us. Anna Rios was basically the founder and started this. She brought Virginia Winberg and me, Heather Sides, in to kind of form the Future Surveyor Foundation. And we did some things. We've done the Women's Surveyor Summit. And as we've expanded, we realized that we needed some more people to help us out with that. So we've brought Jose Pedraza on to be the Secretary Treasurer. Just a little bit about Jose. He has 13 years of experience working on a variety of projects all across the world. He began surveying through the Texas Army National Guard, with missions taking him across Texas to the Chilean Patagonia and various countries in the Middle East. He's worked in various surveying roles throughout the greater Houston area and is currently the survey director at Stewart Consulting Group. And he's an adjunct instructor at the Lone Star College in Montgomery. Jose's been and continues to be a volunteer educator for those taking the Fundamentals of Surveying exam throughout the Houston RPLS SIT study group. He continues to serve as a Sergeant First Class in the National Guard, through which he has participated in various mobilizations, community relief efforts, and disaster recovery missions throughout Texas. He hopes to grow the surveying community through his involvement in the Texas Society of Professional Surveyors, and now as the Secretary Treasurer for the Future Surveyor Foundation. Jose, I'm going to turn it over to you and we'll kind of kick this off.
Awesome. Thank you, Heather. Thank you for that great introduction. And thank everybody for joining us today. We have um, great panelists here ready to discuss a little bit about diversity in the industry and what it means to us. So Heather kind of expanded on it already, but we're looking to now promote surveying in the minority community. Obviously, there's a need for surveyors in the industry, quality surveyors, and we see a big opportunity for us to reach out to those minority communities that might not have heard about surveying or whatever the reason may be. Is kind of what we're going to look into today. So quickly, I wanted to introduce our panelists real quick who we have joining us today. First, I'm going to introduce David Acosta here. David became president of CSTI in 2014 and has been working in the surveying industry for over 20 years. He received his Bachelor's of Science in Surveying Engineering in 2007 and has been a licensed surveyor in New Mexico since 2012. David has dedicated his career to the advancement and recruitment of professional surveying and currently serves as the National Society of Professional Surveyors New Mexico representative and chairman of the NSPS Diversity Committee. David is also a part-time instructor at New Mexico State University with the geomatics program. David has been heavily involved with subsurface utility engineering and subsurface utility mapping for the last 5 years and has successfully led his team to completing numerous projects in New Mexico and the Southwest. David plays a major role in the strategic planning process within CSTI and helps to ensure that the best processes and practices are being utilized on every project.
Thank you, Jose. Glad to be here.
Oh, glad to have you. Our second panelist is Marisa Canales. She's with Steger Bizzle, a senior survey technician at Steger Bizzle. Am I saying that correctly?
Bizzell, but yeah.
Okay, Bizzle, Steger Bizzle in Georgetown, Texas. She was raised in a small central Texas town of Lampasas, where she graduated high school. As a daughter of first-generation Mexican-American college graduates, higher education was made a priority. Marisa graduated from the Texas A&M University with a major in construction science, and she began her surveying career shortly thereafter. To expand on her surveying skills, she completed a master's degree in geospatial surveying engineering. After beginning her career and spending many years in Dallas, she has now made the Central Texas area the place of her focus and of her focusing her surveying career. Marisa is committed to her community. She is the co-chair on the Planning and Zoning Board of her hometown, Lampasas, and has long served her local chapter of the Texas Society of Professional Surveyors. Marisa is also a boy mom and keeps her son involved with city sports and events. So welcome, Marisa.
Happy to be here. Thank you for including me.
All right. Lastly, we have Analisa Gonzalez. She's a professional land surveyor who works with Blair, Church, and Flynn to help develop solutions, improve the community, and responsibly plan for the future. She holds 2 Bachelor's of Science degrees. Oh, I lost my place here. 2 Bachelor's of Science degrees, one in geomatics engineering and the other in civil engineering from Fresno State. Along with dual degrees, Analisa is a licensed as a professional land surveyor in the state of California and a certified engineering training. After working for 7 years within the land surveying profession, she believes that a professional development, mentoring, and networking are 3 major components to a successful career. Taking on roles of leadership in organizations like the American Society of Civil Engineers, California Land Surveyors Association, and Laos College of Engineering Alumni Association has helped her develop as a young professional. Analisa has held positions as K-12 outreach co-chair for the ASC Fresno YMF, secretary for the San Joaquin Valley chapter of CLSA, and is currently serving as a president of the Fresno State Laos College of Engineering Alumni Association and Fresno YMF secretary. In 2018, Analisa was awarded the Outstanding Younger Civil Engineer from the Fresno ASC branch. She also serves on the Advisory Council Board for Fresno State Geomatics Engineering Program, along with serving as a professional mentor for 2 Fresno State geomatics students. So welcome, Analisa.
Thank
You guys
you.
have here. You guys are very well accomplished in the industry here. So welcome to all 3 of you guys. And real quick, briefly, before we get into the questions, I kind of wanted to explain or discuss a little bit more on the concept of growing minorities in surveying and exactly what it means or what we had in mind when we approached this. So there are 3 ideas that we want to kind of go over today. How have each of you grown your careers and how are you continuously growing? How can we grow the number of minorities in the industry? And how can we develop and support minorities who are already in our profession? Right. So real quick, David, do you want to go ahead and just introduce yourself real quick and give us some ideas as to what inspired you to be a surveyor?
Yeah, so it's a pretty interesting story. I'll you know, I won't give you the long story to it, but basically what it came down to for me getting into survey actually had to do with getting paid more. So I had a job at the time that was minimum wage. I had opportunity to go work on a survey crew and was going to make almost double that on top of sharing a room with somebody per diem and everything. It actually turned out to be a pretty cool deal for me. I worked for 2 summers while I was going to college. And when I started college, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do yet, but I was working for the survey firm. Of course, when the summer came, I'm like, I need some more money, so I'm gonna go back. And I started running out of you know, community college classes to take, and I needed to choose a major pretty much. So that's when I decided, you know what, I'm gonna jump into surveying. I was intimidated by the classes I was gonna have to take, but I finally decided just to jump into it, and that's kind of how it launched for me.
Awesome. Marisa, how did you get into the field?
Well, I had started in construction because my degree was in construction, and the company I worked for had lost their bonding. And I was looking for another job in the paper back when people looked for jobs in the paper. And I saw an ad for a rodman, and I had taken a civil engineering surveying class, and I thought I could do that. And so they interviewed me, and they saw that I had a college degree, and they put me on track to get my license and become a surveyor. And so here I am all these years later, still doing it. And you know what? It has been a great career for me. I've been able to support myself and my family. And, you know, that's probably one of the best things that happened to me.
I'm glad you stuck around. You know, some people after trying being a rodman for a summer here in Texas specifically, you know, they kind of reevaluate their life choices, but hey, we stuck around and we made it, right?
Yeah, you know, I spent a lot of time out in the field in Central Texas, in the Llano area. It gets super hot out in that granite, so lots of cactus. You put in your time.
Analisa?
So my dad actually, he works for a civil and land surveying firm. He's a project manager on the civil side. So growing up, I always saw him with plans and different cool topos, and it always interests me, and I loved math. So right before I was going to graduate from high school, he actually allowed me to come and shadow and check out the office. I was looking at civil engineering, and he knew me better than I knew myself, knowing that I'd probably get bored just being in the office all the time. And so he actually had me shadow some of the land surveyors there. And one of the land surveyors that he works with went to Fresno State and recommended their geomatics program. And that's pretty much where it started. I went through the geomatics program, and here I am today, and I've enjoyed every step of the way, and it's been pretty awesome. I feel like the land surveying isn't as well known as it probably should be because it's a pretty awesome career. I'm pretty biased though. So I'm happy that I was kind of led in that direction and was able to find this career path.
Yeah, every time I see a civil engineering student, because I'm a civil graduate myself, I'm always trying to steer them in the survey direction, but not that many follow. So you want to follow up with what you're doing to change surveying for the better? You can go ahead and listen.
So I think for me, I really think that paying it forward and mentoring is one of the things. Is just being involved in the community and really trying to help encourage other students or encourage others that it is possible that you can achieve, what you set your mind to. Since I'm in the California region, I'm in the Central Valley in Fresno. There's a lot of, it's a big migrant community. There's a lot of poverty in the area. And so being able to go and talk to students at different schools and show them that it's possible for, a minority to have a successful career, and that, anyone can do it, and really outreach and talking to different students all throughout. I've talked to students in 6th, 7th grade, even younger than that. And I'm currently trying to get more access to schools just to continue to promote the professions throughout, because I feel like, again, to my point earlier, a lot of students just don't know. They know about civil engineering, they know about bridges, but they don't know about surveying. And I think that it's a gem. I think it's awesome. And so trying to get that in front of students and trying to encourage and promote and show that there are avenues to do that. And we also do a lot of outreach in our, where I work with professionals that are looking at switching and changing careers. So we're trying to encourage. We have ones that have been servers at different restaurants or different, and trying to make a career path out of surveying. And so really outreach in that capacity too has been a huge thing. It's just trying to promote it as much as possible.
So David, I know you've been involved with NSPS Diversity Committee and kind of steering that. So have you guys looked at any adults that might want to switch careers? Is that a potential avenue that you guys have considered?
Yeah, just aside from the NSPS committee, when I volunteered and gone to career nights at schools, a lot of times I always take my drones and my scanners and some computers, maybe a screen, so I can have a 3D model on there. And while my main focus is to talk to the kids, I often see a lot of parents kind of walk and be like, what is that? What's going on with that? And so it's a good way to influence them. And I have seen a lot of interest just based off of that. As part of being with teaching over at New Mexico State, 2 of the labs that I'm a part of, most of the students in those classes are actual civil engineers. So right away, first day of class, first thing I do is I start telling them about the opportunities in surveying. And already they could see the competition that they're going to have just by the numbers in the classroom alone. So I tell them, hey, you ought to consider, you're doing all this work as part of your civil program, you ought to consider surveying as a minor or as a dual major. Being that at New Mexico State, it's an additional 18 credits to get your minor. It's, they like that. I see a lot of heads nod. And I used to have a saying that was 1 in 10 civil engineers wanted to be a surveyor. They just didn't know about it. Right. That was my thing. But now I think I'm going to bump it up to 20%. Now it's like 2 in 10 that are interested. And I think a lot of it, like you said, Marisa, you did it in your class. You got your hands on it, and it gave you that confidence to want to do that. So if anything, I want to be a good light, be a good representation of what surveying is, and to show them that they are capable of doing it as well. What's cool about the hands-on stuff, which is mostly what I do, and so I get to see that light, when somebody's really into it or they're enjoying it, I get to witness that, and I see, and I try to add on to that and encourage them. You're doing a great job. You would be a great surveyor. Just some really words of encouragement, and I think it's been going a long way.
Yeah, David, I think to build on what you said, we have civil engineers and surveyors have a lot of courses that are very closely related. And we looked at the requirements for any given state. you can see that a lot of those courses kind of overlap. So that's a good opportunity that you mentioned there. Marisa, you want to touch on this? What are you doing to help bolster surveying in your community? And I know you've been involved with TSPS in the past, so you want to share?
Yes, I feel like my involvement is community involvement. I kind of feel like we're the unsung heroes. Nobody really knows who we are or what we do. So I try to put myself out there. I'm on planning and zoning, and I try to help my town understand rules and how things work. And I try to explain to people that come up, and a lot of people just really don't know how things work. You get a lot of clients that call and they don't really understand. So I feel kind of my calling is to kind of slow it down a little bit and explain kind of the processes of surveying, so people become a little bit more familiar with it. And maybe that'll just kind of spark the whole conversation when nobody really knows about us. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, what is this? And maybe if we understand it a little bit more, like everybody knows what a lawyer does. Everybody knows the engineer part, but I didn't even know this existed until I went to college. You know what I mean? And by then, like David said, we should be starting a little bit sooner and letting them know, hey, this is there, this is an option. Because I feel like you don't know it's an option until like you've already been doing all this other stuff and had, maybe we started a little sooner. Who knows? I don't know.
Awesome. Sounds like you need to educate the public so they can educate their kids about the industry.
Yeah, it's like David said, how do we draw these people in? Do we draw them in with the technology, with the drones and stuff? I love maps. There's got to be other people out there that loves mapping and maps and just like all these different facets that make land surveying unique. There's something for everybody. We just have to like capitalize on those little things that draw attention.
So I think this kind of ties into one of the other questions I have here as to why we need to have a discussion on diversity, specifically diversity in surveying, right? So Marisa, you want to touch on that? Your thoughts?
Well, let me see. Yeah, I think we do need to probably talk about diversity. Whenever I go to a lot of the TSPS meetings here or the, like our conferences and stuff like that, you can tell that, minorities are a small part of the group. And, is that kind of reflective of the state? I don't really know. Like, is there room to be better? Yes. And I think just starting with the idea of, can we be better? How do we get there? Is a place to start.
Great. David, you want to build on that?
Yeah, I think definitely we do gotta have the discussion. As part of the NSPS committee, we did put out a poll. Some of you might have participated, but the data was it helps us to guide us to recognize who we are, looking in the mirror. And the thing is, though, when we say the word diversity, it could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And just from some studying and things that I've done, I've recognized that when it's forced or it's mandatory, people tend to shy away from it because they don't want to be told what to do at the end of the day. Nobody does. And true diversity is going to be doing something on your own accord, right? You're not being forced to do it. And that's when you get those like good feels inside, when you helped mentor somebody or you feel like you made an impact on somebody's life, that's when it feels good, not because it was forced to happen. And so, some people get turned off right away just when you say the D word, the diversify. So, but it does, by these polls, we recognize that, there's a lot of, we recognize where we can be better, where we can fill more seats, right? And overall, organizations and industries that are more well-rounded and diversified are going to be top notch. They're going to be the best of the best because they have people from various ages, from various backgrounds, various genders, various experiences that all collectively represent the survey industry. And so that's where we need to go. But ultimately, what I feel is that to encourage diversity really doesn't have any, it's like, put that away. Let's add on to what Analisa and Marisa were saying as far as going out and educating. Go visit your school, go visit your community, go talk to somebody about surveying, get involved somehow. Those are all the things that we really need to do to diversify, so that when a student in elementary school or middle school may have already had one experience with surveyors. When I talked to a group one time, and I usually start off and I ask, how many people have heard of surveying before? And usually no hands, right? Very, very rarely. But I did get one hand, and hey, oh, wow, how did you know about surveying? And he's like, well, you talked to my class when I was in middle school. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. So I started to see, okay, this is the second time this person sees this. Now, whether they want to be a surveyor or not, that's another thing. But at least they're aware of who we are. Maybe they're going to go on to have a career that involves having to need a surveyor, and they know who we are. They can respect us. They know what we do. So even if it's not bringing somebody directly into it, it's just education is going to be the key through outreach. And it takes effort. We always say we're introverts as surveyors, and I think that's hurt us quite a bit, because then, oh, I don't do that stuff or whatever, or I don't want to adapt to computers. I don't want to adapt to new things in general. When we talk about diversity and surveying, we could also talk about what we do. What are the services we provide? We want to be diversified in that as well. So to circle back on the question, yeah, diversity is definitely important. But when we lead and our diversity, trying to shove it down people's throats, it's going to make less of an impact. In fact, from some studies I've seen, it may even make the situation worse.
Right, that's a good point you brought up. I don't think we're forcing people to do this, right? Obviously, we're volunteering here, and we want to make sure that we get volunteers out there speaking on surveying, because if they're forced to start outreaching or doing other efforts like that, they're just going to drag their feet and turn people away almost from the industry, right?
That's right. This talk we're having today is a perfect example. You know, we're taking steps to educate and encourage. Your group has taken, I've done a great job in the past with the Women's Summit, and now we get to do this. So it's pretty cool.
Awesome. We did get a question here. Do we know the statistics as far as what percentage of surveyors are minority versus non-minority? Any chance NSPS collected that?
Yeah, let's see. I have, so just a quick rundown. When it comes to ethnicity, 86% are Caucasian, 3.6 Latino, 2.3 Native American, and 3.6 prefer not to answer. So, and another thing is that, it's not to make people feel uncomfortable. That's the other thing is it's not a Caucasian man's fault that there are more of them than anybody else. It's not their fault, but we don't want to make people feel uncomfortable either by, we want to encourage. There's been some great members in our NSPS committee, Steve Dowdy and Jim Cohn, who unfortunately passed last year, but these men fit that, that typical surveyor per se, but they were very active and they had some great ideas. They were really, they wanted to get more women, more minorities, and they were encouraged. So it was nice. So again, diversity doesn't mean we're going to throw everybody out and only minorities can join. It's going to be important, again, to get everybody involved as well.
And Analisa, any thoughts you want to add?
Well, I mean, David touched on a lot that, I agree with. I think ultimately diversity is trying to get a group of people that represent the communities that they're they're working and trying to promote, right? And so trying to get people with from diverse, either I know gender or ethnicity, and trying to really outreach in that capacity. But I do agree with David that it's not to try to what would you say, exclude anyone, but it's more to try to be more inclusive and maybe tap into resources that haven't been tapped into, that there's a lot of potential for growth. And with the way that the demographics are changing, I think it's very important for us to look into diversity and see how there's a lot of communities that are growing and how we can encourage them to be part of this profession. And so that in my mind is diversifying, is reaching out to communities that don't technically have a voice right now, because we're just not communicating effectively to those groups of people. And so trying to create materials in different languages, trying to reach out to these poor communities, doing things like that, I think would be creating a diverse workforce, because you're getting people representing from those different communities. And that allows them to bring their unique perspectives to projects and help develop community represents, the interests of the people that are in that location. And so for me, I think diversity is really just trying to tap into having a wide range of viewpoints that ultimately represent, the area that, our company is located in a whole, or the university or organization, to try to make sure that the different viewpoints that exist within their area of influence are heard and are represented.
Great point. And I think one thing that, the conversation is centered around growing minorities and surveying. So diversity in our industry specifically means looking at that, and if we do have an issue, addressing it, right? And if not, obviously we're not going to try to force it on anybody, but it's something that we have to consider in today's day and age specifically.
And I think just to continue adding on a little bit more, is just it's easier sometimes for people to relate when there's someone that looks like you. I know that's kind of a weird thing to say, but you can see yourself in other people. And so having that representation and having someone there that can relate to you makes it seem like a more obtainable goal. And so having someone there that can support you, that might be first generation, or might be a first female, or what might be the person who had broke barriers, allows you to feel a little bit more or a little less alone, and a little bit more, supported. And I think for those communities and for areas, that we want to reach out to, it's getting students to understand that anyone can do it, and promoting the opportunities that are available in a career like this.
Yeah, great point. It's that saying, right? Representation matters. So definitely having a diverse group of surveyors in the room will just make others who see us on the road, or the grocery store, what do you do? I'm a land surveyor. It's thinking about those little things and how they add up. So good points. Speaking on that, Analisa, do you think surveying is kind of representative of your state's demographic? Just from what you've noticed going to your event meetings and other functions?
No, I mean, in short, no. I think there's room for improvement. And as David mentioned, not to anyone's fault of their own. Like, I think there have been efforts made, but I think one of the things that hasn't been looked into are pairing up with minority organizations that I know SHEP, NSBE, there's other organizations that are out there, and trying to team up for outreach and being able to start to work with other organizations that are trying to communicate to K through 12 and encourage, STEM education and doing that. And I know a lot of our surveying organizations, we've been doing a great effort, but I feel like everyone's doing their siloed efforts rather than trying to join together and create a more, impactful point to really reach out to these communities. And if all the resources are divided, then I don't feel like you're as able to be effective with communicating to everyone. Instead, if you pulled all your resources together and worked with other organizations, I think that would be a little bit more I guess, advantageous for all the groups, and for us to be able to, as surveyors, get into communities and really start promoting what surveying is and why it's important. I know in the Central Valley and in Fresno, and I mean, all throughout the, California, there's a lot of construction and a lot of like heavy emphasis on that. And, within the Bay Area and within the Southern California region. And I went to schools and I've talked to students, and they're interested in construction and they're interested in all these, and I don't, why not surveying? Why not? And it's if we got into interaction and joint efforts with other organizations, I feel like we could get that representation as a whole.
Marissa, what do you think? Is Texas kind of doing a good job of representing its demographics?
I
All personal
Yeah.
experience.
right. I don't know, not really, like Texas is just kind of doing its own thing. And if you can make it in the business, you do, they're not going to give you any concessions or anything like that. When I really feel like kind of coming up through. No, I feel like we probably could have a lot, but at the same time, it's nobody's fault. Like we said, lack of exposure, if we just, I don't think we're reaching out to the right groups. If I hadn't have fell into it, I wouldn't be here either. We could do better.
Yeah, and I think I could speak for Texas a little bit too myself, because I remember when I was at the exam room, I looked around, there was one black male, a few other Latinos, I think maybe another Asian male, and everybody else was white Caucasian. And that's just what it is. It's not like we're emphasizing multiple times. We're not saying it's necessarily a pointed, recruited effort towards white males. That's just kind of what it is. So we can definitely do a little more outreach.
There's always the good old boy system. People tend to promote within and people they kind of know. And I was just kind of talking to an engineer earlier today, and he was saying, like, why don't more Mexicans get into it? Because there's a whole lot in construction. And, like, what is that disconnect? There's no connection between construction and then surveying. You know what I mean? You would think that they would kind of go together, but yet there is a big disconnect between construction and having, a lot of Latinos on crews.
David, what do you think in New Mexico?
Well, I'd say as far as smaller companies, I think it's a little bit more diversified there. But maybe when it comes to bigger corporations, as it goes up the ladder, you might see that there's going to be less and less as you go up. Me and my business partner, we've definitely been able to pave our own path, and we didn't want to pay attention to any of that. We wanted to just do the best we could, and we've been pretty successful so far. But I like we've been saying, it's nobody. I don't think anybody specifically said, oh, it should be this way. It's just kind of through history, the way things have happened and the way the cards have fallen to where we are now. But like Analisa said, once people can see somebody that's like them in those positions, not just as a rodman or a party chief, but also as a project manager or a business owner as well. We just got to keep, just keep educating to get people in those spots. It's definitely nothing that's ever going to happen overnight. It's definitely a movement that we may not see the full results until 5 or even 10 years from now, really.
So earlier today, I kind of pulled some data from the census, and demographically speaking, now we have in California, New Mexico, and Texas specifically, because that's where our panelists are from, around a 76 average white alone percentage, around a 6% Black or African American alone, American Indian is around 5%. That's on average. New Mexico's higher, of course. And then other or two or more races is around 4%. Hispanic and Latino it's mixed, right? So that one's kind of harder to quantify or break it out. But obviously, what it sounds like as far as that NSPS survey went, we're not represented proportionally there. Nationally, there's a higher average for white male. So it's a room for all opportunity throughout the U.S., not just in each of our states, but it's definitely something that we can look at. So the question is, how do we do that? So what are some outside of the box ideas that maybe, David, you have to grow our talent pool?
Yeah, so I was doing some preparations for presentation I'm doing next week, but I came across some information here. It says how can we make a difference? Well, of course, through outreach, like we've been discussing, middle schools, high schools, elementary schools, educating your community at career fairs or getting involved when you can. If a teacher invites you, to go to any class, it doesn't even have to be a technology class. See, typically those are the ones that invite us, but it could be any class really. Having targeted college recruitment efforts, mentoring programs, and task forces. So already, we've talked about some of the outreach that all of us have done, but then there's programs like the Mentoring Mondays from Trent Keenan, where people can participate. It's free. You just get on with the program. You can get mentoring and you could be educated on various platforms as far as that goes. And that's a great program. You have things like the Get Kids Into Surveying initiative, which is really striving. And then, even this Future Surveyors Foundation, those are the ways that we're going to be able to, to make a difference and start taking some action. Continue to take action. There's people that have already been doing it. And like, we just got to kind of band together. I think there's efforts a little bit over here, a little bit over there, but if we could combine some way, how we could get united on this, it would be awesome. I mean, like I mentioned before, the cool thing about this is that there's a huge opportunity for us in this 10-year plan. If we start now, it can only get better. That's the thing. We all love surveying. Obviously, we love it. But guess what? It can only get better by people taking action and seeing those follow the model of somebody like Trent, who's really sticking his neck out to make some things happen. See how these people are doing things and ask them questions. I think all of us would be more than happy to share our experiences with anybody.
Awesome. Analisa, I know you already mentioned partnering up with some targeted organizations like SHIP or NSBE. And for those who don't know, SHIP is Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, and NSBE is, what does NSBE stand for? I forgot.
National Society of Black Engineers. And there's SWE. I mean, there's several organizations. Even teaming up with like an ASCE because most of them have K through 12 outreach and as part of their slate. And so working with organizations and pulling together resources, I think is the main thing. And then if working and helping lift up other communities is another. So I think doing those two things could really help improve. When I was in college, one of my other things that when I was working through school, I was an ambassador or an outreach counselor or outreach ambassador for Fresno State. So I helped with recruiting and trying to get students to go to Fresno State. But through that process, I encountered a lot of school counselors and a lot of teachers that didn't know what surveying was. And I know they have conferences. I know that they have different areas that maybe having representatives that actually go and speak at those types of conferences, I think would be helpful. Having toolkits that teachers can have and use and incorporate, because STEM is a big push. And in California, there's a huge push for STEM education. And I think if teachers had supplies or had coursework that they can, incorporate into their classroom, then I think it would be helpful for them to start, helping students understand what surveying is and exposing them to the opportunity that it has. So I think that would be another suggestion, is looking at creating things like that. I know ASCE, they have little boxes that have different age groups associated with each thing, and they have tasks and different little projects that you get to put together. And if something like that were easily incorporated into someone teaching, I don't know, 6th grade or even younger, then they could start seeing what surveying is and understanding that and incorporating that in the classroom. And I think that would be another positive outlet to really team up and work into not only expanding just other engineering organizations, but just completely other professions, teachers, high school counselors, even younger.
Marisa, do you have any final thoughts on?
Yeah, on growing our profession. This is my thought. Okay. And this is something I feel like nobody's kind of touched on, is that we have another untapped source, and that's our children. I cannot tell you how many people that I have met that are in this business because their dad was in it or things like that. And so, do you think I'm going to bring my son in and keep him busy in the office? You bet I will. And my father was an attorney. He brought me in the office. I did paperwork. He kept me busy. And I feel like those kind of things made me feel really comfortable with this kind of work. And if I can do that for my child, if other people, like, that'll get him comfortable with it. And who knows, he might end up loving this, and then he might become a surveyor. And, I feel like that's another untapped thing that nobody really talks about. But I was just really surprised at the amount of surveyors whose dads were also surveyors.
That's a great point. I know many of those generational surveyors myself, so good call. I'm going to read through these comments real quick. We've got some really good ideas here in the chat. Somebody said that there's a goal for publicly funded projects here have some sort of percentage goal for firms owned by minority or women-owned businesses, right? That's a good benefit to highlight for anybody with an entrepreneurial mind, because there's that guaranteed percentage of minority-owned firms that we can highlight with us. Have state associations work together. Trent Keenan mentioned that there, and kind of brainstorming together. That's a good idea. Somebody said not limiting to minority organizations only. So looking at national organizations like Society of American Military Engineers, and being, working with them as well. So we got about 13 minutes left. We want to keep this to an hour. So let's get to what can we do for our current talent? How do we support those field guys and those office techs who want to work their way up the profession? Marisa, what do you think?
Repeat that again.
How do we support our field crews and our office staff becoming licensed, or how do we make sure that they have the support coming up the ranks?
I feel like mostly what I need is time. But how to be supportive, I think just, being involved and asking the questions, maybe like once a week. How's it going? How is this going? What are your plans? And, I've had a lot of really great mentors keep their finger on me. And I think that's probably what's helped me, is somebody always checking in. Hey, where are you at on this? Hey, do you need any help on this? And, finding that mentor or being that mentor, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's easy for project managers to get caught up in the high level project stuff, and they forget to really mentor those techs or those subordinates they have. So that's definitely key there. Analisa, what do you think?
Sorry to unmute myself. I think that mentorship is always a great thing. Really mentoring, getting mentorship, and then mentoring the next, new employees and helping them. I think also investing in education and investing, helping them, putting a priority on that. Training seminars, trying to get them in front of the right people so that if you can't answer that question, trying to connect them with someone that might be able to assist. I also think that in order for us to continue to succeed and grow and really invest in that future is just really, I see a lot of technical emphasis, but in a lot of the professional organizations, but I think there also needs to be really some trainings to help us as professionals be better at mentoring and training and being more hands-on. There's a lot of technical skills, but really working on the soft skills that I feel like organizations sometimes tend to sway away a little bit more from the soft skills. But in order for us to invest and for people to feel like we genuinely care, that they are succeeding and that they have a growth path in whatever organization they're working for, we really need to start learning how to have those conversations and sit down. I know, growing up, it's just put your head down and work. But if you don't have any direction, if you don't have anyone sitting there and maybe offering that guidance, then what are you working towards? What are your goals? What, setting up SMART goals, strategic, measurable, it was achievable, realistic, and time-driven, things like that I sometimes don't think that those conversations are happening. So that you're not just floundering, that they know that there's someone there that's encouraging them and they can see, how to get from point A to point B. And I think that's just really important.
David, you got anything to add here?
Yeah, I just wanted to share, to add to this, one of the comments Joseph Johnson has, one of the best things my company ever did was to start a diversity scholarship and award it to minority students every year. Like that's a great idea, because it shows that, the company is caring, they're trying to make a difference and promoting within, giving people a chance along with the mentoring, when you get to work with somebody and you're the mentor, well, you start to not maybe take ownership of that a little bit, because you're pouring into this person. You want to see them succeed. You don't want to feel like you led them astray. You want to see them do good. So when people get connected like that, mentoring programs within companies, I think it goes a long way. Another idea I had seen was self control groups or something, where somebody could attack a task and you kind of put your job titles away. You're working on something collectively so that everybody has a part to play in this, and it does, right? We all know you're only as good as your weakest link. If you could have a top-notch company, but if you're not training and mentoring somebody the right way, they could do a lot of damage to you as well. But I see where there's a lot of, just in the comments, a lot of programs. There's some really good comments in there about people having diversity scholarship programs and promoting and stuff. So I think that's really good. It'd be awesome this is just from this meeting and the 45 people that are participating. But on a national level, it'd be interesting to see all these efforts. We need to probably keep speaking louder about them. Just keep doing this.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep up with the chat here as well and moderate this discussion as we're going. So if I missed your comment, I'm sorry. We did get a good question in here. Can you provide some information about the NSPS Diversity Committee? What do they do? Where do they meet? And what information do you have for somebody who's interested in speaking nationally?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the committee was started in 2020. My good friend Amanda Allred, she invited me to be a part of it, to lead that committee. And we started off really strong. We were having a lot of meetings and making a lot of progress. And we had the poll going out, and everything. Our last meeting was at the NSPS meetings last fall out in Chicago. That was the last meeting we had. But it's been kind of quiet a little bit, but if you want to be a part of it, I would recommend that you reach out. Last year, of course, with COVID and stuff, it makes it difficult, and not everybody can travel to, to DC or to here and there. So we had been having, virtual meetings and stuff like that. But moving forward, it's like, okay, we need to pour out more into the states and get acquainted with which states already have a diversity program going or something towards that, and start to encourage them. It does make it a little tough when we only meet in person twice a year, and you got to really stretch out to go meet. But we do our best to have some intermediate meetings as well, and start taking some action on certain things. So we will be for sure, we're going to be meeting again in DC next month at the end of March going into April, but there may be something in between as well. So that's, I think, one of the biggest efforts we've had so far was definitely the polls and understanding what we've done. But even members within, including yourself, Jose, have gone out and done other things as well. Between you and Anna and a lot of others, there's a lot of participation and things that they're doing. And I know I'm forgetting some others as well, but that's where we're at right now. And we're just getting started. We have a long way to go. And like I said, but the good thing is that it's only going to make us better. There's just a lot of opportunity at the end of the day, is the way I see it.
Okay, awesome. So we're running real close on time here. One thing I want to ask for each of you guys is real quick. Any advice for any young up and coming surveyors, and any advice for managers dealing with minority young surveyors? What kind of advice do you guys have on either side? David?
In general, I would tell any young person, don't be scared to take some chances, don't be scared to mess up. That's how we learn. And even within our crews, when people make mistakes, I'm like, it's okay. Don't worry, that's how we're learning. When you become a manager, you're basically just going to be solving problems all day anyways. And as far as managers, you have to look out for yourself too. You have to recognize your situation. If the company you're with, you don't feel like there's advancement available for you, or there's something could be holding you back, you gotta look for other opportunities. Right now, being a surveyor, there's a ton of opportunities. I think you're very likely to find a company, a group that really would take you in and be able to provide value to you. But overall, just don't be scared to get out there and get out and think outside the box.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Marisa?
Any advice I would have, definitely, coming up, I think it was a rough start, but I stuck at it, and I just love the work. So that probably helped me through. And sometimes I didn't get paid a lot, but I loved it, and it pays off in the end. So I would, my advice is to stick with it. What is that saying? If you love what you do, you'll never work a day of your life. So definitely that. As a manager, I would suggest maybe taking 5 minutes out of your day, and like you said, all you're doing is solving problems. It's crazy and it's hectic. But if you just give, your staff 5 minutes, figure out where they are and how you can help them grow, I think that'll be time well spent, because you'll see where they're at, where they need to go, and what you can do to help them out and help your team out.
Thank you. Analisa?
For young professionals, I'm always encouraging them to get involved. to join their state organizations, to get involved in, an SPS at the national level, but trying to basically extend your network. The more people you know, the stronger connections you have the profession. It really sets you up for success because there's a lot of surveyors that are willing to help and answer questions and want to see you succeed. And so being willing to ask the questions from your managers and even externally through relationships that you've built through different organizations, I think is really key. Understanding that you're going to be continually learning never stops. Once you get out of school, it doesn't stop. Trying to push yourself to continue to take courses. I know the CST is, a way for field professionals and office professionals to get certified and really push yourself and continue to learn and have that hunger and don't let that die off. And then as a manager, I think showing your humanity is a great thing so that your employees know that you're approachable. I think being willing to come with a team and sit down and have lessons learned and show that, people make mistakes. I know David touched on that. Team members might, make mistakes, but we do too as managers, that happens, and being able to be transparent with that and have that level of trust built with other team members, I think is really important, because if there is an issue, if there is something happening to where they need to talk to somebody, I think it's important for them to feel confident that they can, level with you and that you are approachable and that you are understanding and that you are empathetic to their situation. I think that is really important as a manager, is not just the technical side, like I mentioned before, but also the human side of it, that we all have our bad days. We all have things that go on, and being able to work with employees and work with other team members to resolve those and try to really be there and help lift them up and help them succeed.
Awesome, great information, guys. Before we wrap up, what is the best way for somebody to reach you guys? David?
Email is fine. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram as survey.inc. That's our company. But I think LinkedIn is a good way to reach out. Or if you're not on LinkedIn, email is good.
Marisa?
I agree with David. Email, LinkedIn. That's probably the best ways. Yeah.
And do you guys mind sharing those emails in the chat for everybody if they have any questions for you guys? Analisa?
The same. Either way, LinkedIn and email is preferred.
Great. Well, thank you guys very much for joining us. We didn't get a chance to cover all the questions we had, but I feel like we had some good discussion here anyway. And everybody, thank you for tuning in. This is the first of many discussions that we're going to have centered around minorities. If you're interested in either helping with the committee or being a participant on a future panel, feel free to reach out to me. My email is jose.pedraza@futuresurveyors.org, and I'll put that in the chat as well. Or like they said, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. Let's put that up here.
Yeah, and I just want to say thanks to the people in the comments as well, because there's some really good information in there. I'm gonna write down some of these ideas. There's some really good ideas shared. So thank you all for chiming in as well in the comments.
And then our last piece of information that we're gonna share with you guys, we want everybody to save the date, July 28th through the 21st, 2022. In Williamsburg, Virginia. We're going to have our next Women's Surveyor Summit. So details will be pushed out at a later date, but for now, mark your calendars and get excited.
Awesome.
All right, thank you, everybody. And that's the end of our webinar.
Thanks to you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. I hope we answered some good questions and gave some good food for thought.
Happy to be here. Thank you for including me, guys.
Thank you all for joining.